to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thank you for coming on the show today, Mike. It's so good to meet you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so explain to our viewers who you are, what you do, and your political career a little bit.
Well, I am the elected sheriff of Tulare County, and I've been with the sheriff's office for about 38 years, but I've been the elected sheriff for 3 terms. I'm in my 3rd term as the elected sheriff in Tulare County. And so what's happening now with me and my career is I'm taking a look at California Congressional District number 20, and I'm in the race for that congressional seat.
So why the leap? Why the leap from elected sheriff and then straight to this seat?
I think it's a great question. You know, as the sheriff, I'm considered the lawman, enforcing the laws. Over the course of my career, I have seen horrible legislation come through not only from Sacramento, but at the federal level out of Washington, D.C. And it becomes frustrating for law enforcement, those who are responsible for providing public safety, when your hands are tied by those who have been elected into positions, creating laws that they don't understand the impacts of real-life people. For me, I take a look at those in my community and up and down the state of California who, quite frankly, live in poverty. There's people that I come across that have to decide between buying food and eating that day and being able to have enough gas to go to work the next day. So when I talk to families who are deciding whether or not to eat food that day, it's very challenging for me as a law enforcement officer, the elected sheriff, when we provide public safety, to just limit it to enforcing criminal law. We have to look out for people. And what I'm frustrated with is that there's laws that are being generated. There is an economy that is failing us. We have an administration, both federally and in the state of California, that has failed people, real people, who are living lives just trying to survive. And what I'm frustrated with as sheriff is that that is happening right here in our own district, Congressional District 20. And so I've decided that I would like to try and make that shift from lawman to going to a lawmaker, meaning that I have lived with people's lives up and down our district as well as in my county where real lives are being impacted. And I want to be able to be the person who generates positive things for the people who live here by good legislation and or removing legislation.
Well, I'll admit I was excited to find out about you because 20 years ago, I did a ride-along with the Tulare Ag Crime Unit.
Okay.
And, the first Ag Crime Unit, I wrote for an ag magazine, and so I saw a lot of things that were happening, and back then I was ambitious about all of the positive changes that could be made in ag. A lot of things have been done, but we're still in a huge water crisis.
We are.
We still have all these problems about 20 years ago. And so I heard a lot of it is people up there do not know what's happening here. They're not spending time in the valley and seeing the challenges we have. So if you're elected, how are you going to help farmers?
I think that's a great question. I grew up in ag. I grew up in FFA and around farming and agriculture all my life. My friends and families are multi-generation deeps of farmers, ranchers, and dairymen, growers. I've seen many of our growers completely rip up their orchards because they can't afford the water to keep it sustainable. We have a lot of smart people in California. We have a lot of smart people in this country who can come together and make good quality decisions for the sustainability of water in our agriculture. And what's frustrating for me is that I see friends and families who are closing dairies because they can't afford it because of the water. Dairies require water. They can't afford to water food that's important for all of us across this country to eat. And I consider it an issue of national security, quite frankly. If you can't feed your country, if you can't feed your soldiers, who's going to feed it? Who's going to feed them? If you're relying on other countries to help us out when it comes to food and water, we're failing ourselves, and quite frankly, it's ignorant. And I see these things as sheriff, and so I'm not just the law and order candidate. I'm also the candidate who has good ideas, innovative ideas when it comes to our water, our infrastructure, and what that means. What I'd like to do if I'm fortunate enough to be elected into this position is to invite people out here. Invite Democrats from across the aisle to say, hey, come into my district and take a look at why water is so important, not only for my district, but for the world, for our country. And I would equally go into their district. Hey, show me why you're fighting so hard for what you're fighting for. And try to work on both sides of the aisle. But I think it's important for people to come into this district to take a look as to why agriculture and water is so important. I'll give you an example. For you and I, we live here. This is simple to us, right? We understand that agriculture is a huge part of our district, huge part of our valley. Quite frankly, it's a huge part for our country. But I've had people come visit here. Jesse Waters being one from Fox News. He come here to do a special guest appearance at an event. And he was talking about how those in New York don't understand that California is an agricultural place. And
It is amazing.
I was shocked by that.
Right?
I was shocked by that. He said that as he flew in over the grapevine, he didn't even know what the grapevine was, but he said he flew in over the grapevine and saw all the green. And that the pilot and everyone on the plane was beginning to explain the nature of the amount of agriculture in the Central Valley from Kern County all the way up into Fresno County. And he said he had no idea that this amount of agriculture was here. And we had to explain that, look, we provide 80% of the nation's food source right here between Kern, Tulare, Kings, and Fresno. And he didn't understand that. Then he began to get a realization of the need for water. And so he promised after that event that he would spotlight that on one of his shows. And I watched it very closely to see if he did, and he did. He spotlighted it. But quite frankly, it didn't garnish the attention that it really needs. What I want to do is to develop a plan where we have ongoing sustainable water. Now, I always talk about a project that I have researched, and it's called the Alder Project, ALDER, and it's a natural rock face area up above Folsom that was identified way back in the gold rush days in 1849 as a potential area to put in a dam. The hard part is that when you mention dam, it goes against the narrative of environmentalists, and dams aren't something people want to put in. And so I said, well, look, I've negotiated with a lot of people in my career, and I've negotiated with people, quite frankly, who don't like me or don't see my opinion. But at the end of the day, we can walk out of the room with some type of workable plan. And so I said, well, let's not put in a dam. Let's take a look at this and put in what we want to generate into green energy, because that's a hot topic, and put in a hydroelectric reservoir. So why not kill two birds with one stone, where we can generate electricity for the northern part of California while having an ongoing cold snowmelt reservoir that can feed the valley, offsetting the impacts to our aquifers that are so depleted. They're down 6 to 10 feet in some areas because of the drought in recent years. But that reservoir would be able to filter and replenish those aquifers for our Central Valley. But we got to go beyond that. And so what I'd like to do as well is generate the funding that puts in what is called desalinization plants. Put a desalinization plant in Northern California, put a desalinization plant in the LA Basin. There already is a desalinization plant in San Diego, and it's proven to be very effective. The problem is it's very expensive to operate and very expensive to build. And all of this does come with a price tag, but the reality of it is there's innovative ideas that we can create to generate water, store water, by offsetting the demand for water. And so people will talk about a lot that, hey, we don't have enough water for agriculture and people. Well, what's the reason for that? Well, the reason for that is because our population has increased to the point that we don't have enough water to feed the people. It's the population demand, not so much we don't have enough water, it's we don't have enough water for the amount of people that are growing in this country and growing in California. And so we have to come up with solutions. And so those solutions, in my mind, is a desalinization plant, hydroelectric reservoir, and ongoing sustainable cold water, freshwater collection, as well as replenishing our aquifers, our underwater. And so how do we provide the energy that will help generate the energy to keep these desalinization plants going? Well, I just mentioned the hydroelectric plant for green water, electricity to help with Northern California, but I would really like to see us put in a brand new nuclear power plant that'll help not only supply energy to the LA Basin and different parts of California, but as well as provide the energy necessary for a desalination plant. So these are all crazy ideas, I think some people would say, but the reality of it is what we've been doing doesn't work. And so we're going to have to come up with innovative, creative ideas that, one, help supply the water demand that we have in the Central Valley, as well as the ever-growing population in California. And so those are just some of the ideas that I have with water. I've been meeting with many different water districts, as well as the GSAs who are with our SGMA, which is our state's Groundwater Management Act. Some of that is an out-of-control system that is overreach in a lot of ways, that is outpricing our farmers when it comes to the water that they pump and the water that they need. Right. It's just unbelievable amounts of a price tag against our farmers. I don't think our farmers should be charged one dime for water, quite frankly, because it's an issue of national security.
Right.
Can we get there? I think we can get there, but it's going to require federal funding. And hopefully, as I get into Congress, that's something that we can provide.
And then there lies the problem. People are like, well, we're going to take the funding out of to fund this, even though, like we both agree, it's a very big it's one of the top priorities.
Sure.
So I think that's where people get nervous too. How do you feel about what's going on as far as funding, how it's being distributed?
Well, first and foremost, the world's economy is founded on the American dollar. We have to have a strong, sustainable dollar, and quite frankly, we don't have it because we're printing money we don't have. We're writing checks that we don't have money in the bank to cash, right? And so we're spending trillions of dollars in a war in Ukraine. Quite frankly, most of us don't understand. We're overspending, and we're spending a lot on fat in the United States. That we're going to have to go through some hard times of cutting things, where some things that we saw we got comfortable with, we're going to have to remove.
Like what?
I think our focus needs to be securing our border and focusing on our homeless and mental health crises. We also have to focus on our education system. Anything outside of that needs to go away. I mean, what exactly are we spending money on in this country? And I think that's a great question. Like what? Well, what are we spending money on? I think most of the country doesn't even understand what we're spending money on. We have to have a strong defense program, right? We got to spend money on a military that's going to be the strongest and scariest military in the world. We don't want to take money away from that. But why are we spending money on programs in regards to gender identity? Why are we spending money on programs in regards to sex transition? Why are we spending money on making sure that we have rehabilitation programs for inmates and those to be held accountable for crimes committed, but yet we're releasing them from prisons without them serving their time in prison? When I first went into as the sheriff of Tulare County, actually as the undersheriff, second command at the time, and I was in charge of the budget, the sheriff told me, he says, look, we're short of $2 million. And he says, I'm going to have you take a look at this budget. Otherwise, we're going to be hurting at budget time, and it's a couple months away. So I went and took a look at it, and I started taking a look at what we don't have to do, what we don't have to have. If we have an airplane in the air and we're spending $100,000 every 6 months in fuel, that may be something that's a luxury that we have to remove. There's fat that's being spent in the federal government that's impacting real lives here at home. So we're going to have to cut and trim the fat.
And why are they still putting a lot of money in those reform programs in prison? Have they been deemed like effective? Why is it still? I thought at first it was like experimental to see if it would be effective for them not to reoffend, but they still are. So how does that work?
They still are. Look, I'm a big believer in rehabilitation and second chances. I believe people need them. There are some, though, that abuse that to the point that we don't hold them accountable. But also what I see as sheriff is that you want me to fix a problem that parents and or society has created over the last 18, 20 years for a young offender. My job as sheriff is not to fix this person. My job as sheriff is to hold them accountable for crimes committed.
Right.
Now, does that mean while they're there, we can make efforts into changing their lifestyles, changing their mindsets? I believe that that is an important part when it comes to abusive behavior or drug addictive behaviors. when it comes to mental health and mental health crises and social services and mental health counseling while in custody. All of those are necessary elements for the ability for success upon release. What we're doing now is we're not holding people and criminals accountable in California under Proposition 47. Many are being released, only to reoffend, and no one is seeing those programs. A lot of people say, hey, they need to live their lives, and if they want social services, they'll get them on their own. Well, that doesn't happen.
Right.
People don't seek them on their own. If you have a family member right now, say you had a family member in a mental health crisis, where would you send them? Most people don't know where to go. So what we find is that when that happens, you're going to call 911, and the cops come. Well, and the cops, when they show up, they're very good at evaluating a situation and dealing with mental health crises. But what happens typically is there's some type of crime that's committed and they go to jail. They go to jail. We try to make sure that they receive those services. But here's the biggest part, and this is what I want to bring. When someone is released from custody, we don't have any post-release care. There's no after-release care. Where do they go? Where do they go for help? If someone has a drug-addictive behavior, they come into our jail for whatever reason that they've used too much drugs or had drugs on them. Say they serve 60 days in my jail, which they don't anymore, but in times past they would. They would receive services while in custody. And I'm not saying arresting is the answer, because someone quoted me and says, well, you think arresting people is the answer. No, not arresting people is the answer. Is that we're making sure people are forced to get help. Because what I've seen in my 38 years of law enforcement is people don't seek help on their own most of the time.
It's
98%
true.
of the time they don't. Families are frustrated. And so those programs need to be set in the custodial setting. But what we need, and what I would like to bring in the congressional level, is after-release care. So when they are released from custody, that there is services available, mental health services, rehabilitation services, drug-addictive behavior services, crisis intervention services, where there is infrastructure and staff funded to where there's a place to go. There's not. So what happens? Our homeless increases, our homeless rate increases, our mental health crisis increases, because quite frankly, there's no help.
So that's one of the big changes that you'd like to see.
I would. I'd like to see federal programming that comes into the local areas like Fresno, Bakersfield. I have been into the streets of Clovis and Bakersfield and even my hometown in Visalia, and the homeless crisis is out of control and not getting any better.
It's risen, and like every year it rises.
And it's going to rise every year. And the reason is because no one's getting help. There's no help out there. There's good people, there's churches that try and do their best, there's nonprofit organizations trying to do their best, but quite frankly, if you're not paying someone to do the job, it's a tiring job. And if you're constantly trying to raise money to bring help into a society that has washed its hands to much of what we see, then we're going to have to, as the government, start to get involved and provide help. It would be great to have infrastructure downtown Fresno where there's mental health counseling, where there's people on staff, there is federal funding that allows for infrastructure to be built, but not just to house people, to rehabilitate people.
They need to work.
To you work.
Yeah.
You get to leave and you need to go out. We talked about how we would cut, federally, and what does that look like? You asked that question earlier. Well, look, our welfare program is out of control. We need welfare reform. We can't continue to raise welfare recipients just to have more welfare recipients. We need to be able to create an environment where work and being proud of yourself and moving and sustaining yourself is part of the program. But we're going to have a place for people to go. We don't have it. Bakersfield has the same problem with homeless and mental health crises that Fresno does and Clovis does. And I've been down there visiting in Bakersfield as well, and it's a mess.
Well, a lot of people think it's also because of a problem like our economy, and that's they're getting set up for failure because then they get a job, then they can't afford rent. They have a full-time job, but they're not being able to afford the
there's
rent
a lot of
and
that
the
true,
car
of
and
course.
This and that. It takes so much just to live, and so you get the job. Now what? You need the car, you need the house.
You need the car, you need the house. You got to pay for electricity and water. All of that is pricey. I remember being a young deputy, being barely able to afford my own apartment, and so I get that, and it's not a one-fix-all. It's not, but we definitely need to start tackling this at the ground roots, because We have people in LA as well as Bakersfield and even here in Fresno that are dying every week, if not every day in LA, on the streets because they don't have adequate care. And so how do we as a society not to begin to take that very, very seriously?
Right.
And so it bothers me because I'm also the coroner. I see these things, and we have people that die that we don't know the names. And we'll put the faces on TV and social media trying to identify family members that can help. But we're having this happening right here in California, right here in our country, and it's a crisis.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've made in the last 3 terms of your seat right now?
Well, one of the biggest things that I'm proud of in my agency is that I think that what we need to do is begin to reach our children and intervene at the earliest levels when it comes to raising good quality adults, caring adults. And we have a society that, in the Central Valley, there's a lot of gang influence. There's a lot of narcotic, easy money influence. There's a lot of criminal activity where you can make money, right? And so what we want to do is to intervene with our children at the earliest levels. And so I created what's called a youth development program. And last year alone, we reached 35,000 children. Not in the cities, the counties, the county area of responsibility. Cool. And so all these kids were underprivileged children. Many of them were from migrant worker parents, most of which are undocumented families that are in the area. But we reached 35,000 children, and we reached them with a free football program, free basketball program, free soccer program, and of all things, a bowling league. And so you take a look at that and you go, oh, well, everybody has a sports program. Well, this is where it's different. Look, this is free. Everything's free. And we raise money every year. People are willing to give to help impact the kids in these levels. And we had the NFL get involved, National Football League. Los Angeles Clippers recognized me as one of the state of California's most innovative programs that they've seen. Los Angeles Clippers sends their coaching staff to put on free clinics. Sacramento Kings are now involved. And what I've done most recently is reached out to the Kern County area with what we're trying to do, and we're going to reach Fresno as well. It's called Building Bridges. And so we've taken our athletic youth development program and we're reaching out to Kern County. They're our next outreach. And we've invited them up to our soccer day, which is coming up this Saturday, and we have 1,000 children that are registered, all for free. And so Bakersfield Police Department's interested in becoming a participant in what's called Building Bridges, to where our kids in our area will begin to compete with the kids in their area. And now we're starting to interface and develop relationships, developing that acts of human kindness at so many different levels, not just areas. And so Fresno's next. That's one of the programs that I'm really excited about and what we're doing. And in some of the stories that I received back is we've had teachers say, hey, look, this was an out-of-control child in our classroom. They were failing with Fs. Now they're role model students in the classroom. They have C and Ds. They're passing their classroom. Moms have come up to me and said, look, I'm so thankful for this. I couldn't afford it. My child was on the path of criminal activity, and now he's wanting to play sports so bad that he's behaving. Now, is that the answer we hear from everybody? No. I mean, we're not going to be 100%.
Well, that's a big achievement.
But it's huge.
Yeah.
And we saw a 35 to 40% reduction in criminal juvenile activity in our county areas.
It's actually really huge.
Huge. Vandalisms went down. Petty thefts went down. Juvenile crime, fighting on campus went down. All of that's impacted by a free program that we did in our county. Why can't we do that district-wide? I think we can. But you have to have someone, you have to have an agency that's going to engage, and we talk about, well, these, maybe these kids can seek their own football and soccer. No, you got to go out to them. We went out to the schools, we went out to the parents, we gave out
You said
flyers.
No one gets help.
We said,
you
come
have to
to
go.
us.
Yeah, you have to
got to
give
go to them. And so that's one of the programs that I'm incredibly proud of with the Sheriff's Office. We also created our own media unit with, we call it EPRU, which is an Employee Public Relations Unit. Basically, it's our PIOs in public relations, but we're reaching out to our community not only through social media, but through print writing, as well as media aspects on television. And so part of sharing what we do, promoting our brand, is making sure that people hear and see what we're doing, and that the community trusts what we're doing. But if you don't show people what you're doing, they don't know. So we developed a 7-person team that we've been showing any and everything that we do, and the feedback is very positive.
Where can we see some of this at?
Well, I'll tell you, go on to, we have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have...
And what's it called?
At Tulare County Sheriff's Office.
And then we can see everything that's happening.
Everything that
I
we're
love
doing.
that. I love that you're really engaged like that.
Yeah, it's very engaging. A lot of the younger crowd loves our TikToks. Some of the older crowd thinks it's a waste of taxpayer money.
I think that's fun. I want to see it.
But the TikToks are very fun. We have a young lady that we've hired out of UC Santa Barbara that lives in Dinuba. She's local, and we've now hired her for our social media, and she's fantastic.
And you're good at social media as well as about telling us your speaking engagements and where we can come and see you and your fundraising events, right?
You know, for me, I have a personal one that most people follow that one versus my congressional run. So let me give that one, and that's the number 6. Not spelled out 6, the number 6, point gold star, all one word, 6-point gold star. Because my badge, usually on my shoulder, this is a flag today, but it's a badge, it's 6 points, it's 6-point gold star. If you go to that one, you'll find the Mike Boudreaux for Congress links, and it'll take you there, or just go to MikeBoudreauxForCongress.com and it'll take you, I have it on Facebook, as well as Instagram. And
you always kind of let us know your speaking engagements, fundraising events, so we can kind of prepare for that.
Yeah, we have a big fundraiser event coming up May 4th. It's going to be held at the Tulare Ag Center. We're inviting, we received the Clovis Police Officers Association endorsement here in Clovis. 4 of the 5 Clovis City Council have endorsed us. A lot of that doesn't get out sometimes, and we try to really make sure people are aware. But we're having a big event that everyone's welcome on May 4th. It's going to be a big extravaganza.
So do you buy a ticket for that? Is that how it works?
Just go online and link and buy. And
is it a dinner or?
It's a dinner, dancing. It's got a band. It's going to be more of a social event than a fundraiser. But we really want to encourage people to hear what I have to say about my run for Congress. It's a tough situation. I admire anybody who gets into politics or tries to run for office because it's a challenge. But we're receiving a lot of great support, and we're thankful.
So besides voting for you, what else, as a community, those of us that support you, what else can we do to help you?
Well, what would be great is you go on social media and share. You talk to your family and friends and share, and you say, hey, look, I've had the opportunity to speak with Mike Boudreaux. You may not know him, but go take a look at his information. I have a lot of video links where you can see what I talk about and what I believe in. And so that's important. Family and friends is what's going to win this election, because most people don't pay attention.
It's very true.
They don't. And it's important that you educate yourself, because in campaigns, the guy who spends the most money usually wins. For me, I'm not spending a lot of money. I'm trying to shake hands with as many people as I can. I'm trying to get family and friends to share as many times as they can. So when you go onto my social media, if you can share it and invite people to come and take a look, or even invite me to an event. I don't care if there's 5 people or if there's 100 people. I'll go talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
I'm very thankful for being here.
Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've been excited about meeting you because you do a lot of cool things. I heard about the event that you were at where you were honored. So tell our audience what you do.
I am the CEO and founder of The Art of Anger. It is a trauma transformation center. It is colloquially called a rage room. There are rage rooms. We actually have people come in and they have a package of stuff, glass and other breakables. They're going to pick weapons out of this huge selection of weapons, and they're going to go in rooms and break stuff and yell and scream and cuss and pull up heavy emotions that get buried in the body so they can heal.
That is really awesome. And I think a lot of people just think about the fun of it, about breaking stuff, but it's so much more. So tell us about that.
So every rage room on the planet classifies as entertainment, and there are rage rooms in lots of different places, and they generally do one thing. You're just breaking stuff, and sometimes they even have one thing that you're breaking, like maybe just plates or maybe just bottles. We actually do this so that people can heal. So it is science-based. Heavy emotions that make other people uncomfortable, they get buried deep in the body. They're heavy. They're already heavy, and then they sink further when shame is in the picture. So every time someone says, "Hey, Sparkle, why are you mad about that?" Or, why'd you slam that? Or why are you yelling? Or why are you quiet and sullen? Why won't you talk to me? That's shame. So it pushes those heavy emotions, anger, rage, grief, trauma, disappointment, fear. It pushes them down further. They attach to cells and they make us sick. They make us physically and emotionally unwell.
Because we're not supposed to show anger.
Exactly. So we've all grown up in this same society that socializes us to push it down. Just squash it. Just, keep that under wraps and, don't let anybody else see that. And what's wrong with you? And so what we do is so different, and it's, I invite you to come in and experience it. Absolutely.
I will be the first one in line. This is up my alley.
It's so incredible. We do memberships and we have corporate memberships. I love it that folks that are in HR and managers and directors are thinking, hey, we want our employees to be healthy. This affects your bottom line. So if you've got folks that are experiencing burnout because they're doing shift work or, it's a really tough industry, we can reduce your burnout. We can increase your retention rates. We can increase your productivity because this is a huge stress relief. And the really unique way that we do it is very special. We are the only rage room on planet Earth that does not have an age minimum. That's unheard of in my industry. So we get littles. Yeah, it's absolutely just phenomenal.
So what's that therapeutic part of it? Because you're more than just a rage room. So what are the other depths that you guys do?
Well, so there's so much. So part of it is that this is ACEs based. So the Adverse Childhood Experiences Scale, which is a longitudinal study that began in the 90s, tells us that the higher your ACEs score, which is it's a questionnaire that we ask kids, and we look at things like, were you bullied? Were you in a home where there was a divorce, or where did you move around a lot? And that moving around a lot could be because you're a migrant, could be because you were in poverty and you got evicted, or it could be that you're a military kid, right? So, or, parents got better jobs and you moved up. It doesn't really matter the why, but moving around a lot can affect a kid because, hey, maybe I really like that bedroom, or maybe I had friends at that school, or the things that we lose, right? So that would be a point on the ACEs scale if you moved around a lot, right? So the higher your points, the greater propensity later for poor health outcomes. And that's pretty shocking. I mean, every health anomaly that we can think of, every type of cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of those things, we can track it back to trauma.
Yeah, I've always heard there's an underlying, and it's crazy.
And it shaves years off your life. So what we do is it's all about helping people and creating a space for people to get that stuff up and out of your body. So the glass and things that you're breaking, we put them down in the ground. So we want you to reach down and you're pulling that stuff symbolically up and out of your body. And it's very, this is spiritual work for me. So are you familiar with your chakras?
Yeah, and we've had people come on and talk a little bit about that as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to know our power, own our power, stand in our power, heal our heart, because we get that stuff out of the way, heal our heart, and speak our truth. So we'll encourage people to yell and scream while they're in there. We even have, we give you chalk at the end of your session so that you can graffiti the walls. So we're all about the stuff that people tell you not to do. So tag our walls. You're going to actually get to graffiti. And if you want to, if you have a tag, put the tag. If you want to draw a picture, whatever. Some people write messages to the people who harmed them. Some people write messages to their younger self, that things that they wish that someone would have said to them. Some people write messages to the future self that they want to become. Some people write messages that they leave for the rest of us who are going to read them. But it's all over the place. And it's the last bit of catharsis before you leave my rage room. And then you go into my Zen splatter paint room and you jump on a trampoline and you throw paint at a canvas and you get to keep that canvas.
Wow.
Yeah. So then a lot of people think, Sparkle, that is the art of anger, because the name is the art of anger. The art part Now that is artistic, and that is an artistic component, and it is catharsis in its own way. And I'll come back to the paintings in a sec, but the art part is actually that after you're done, you could work with one of our artists in residence and create a unique piece of art out of the shards of the broken stuff, or a stepping stone. So every time you see that, if it's a stepping stone, and if you put it, by your front door, even if you put it on a table near your door, or in the kitchen, or wherever you put it, because it's a nice little, it'll be a pretty little piece. Whenever you see that, you're reminded that you're on your healing journey, and you're moving yourself in the trajectory that you self-determine. You're not stuck in the trauma. You're not sidelined in the trauma. You're not living life through the lens of the trauma. You're the hero. That you're coming to save you, and you showed up. And that is a marker of your journey.
So do you also offer actual therapy where it's people could talk to you as well, or it's all through actions?
We do not do therapy. I am a life coach, and I do work with a number of clients. All of my advanced degrees are in psychology, but I specifically didn't want to do the clinical route. I was a women's gender and sexuality studies professor for 24 years. So what we have is alternative mental health, and an alternative to therapy, and a very good complement to therapy. So we have lots of clients who are referred by therapists who come in. We have some therapists that come in with their clients and bring them in. We have just a really great relationship with the mental health community in Fresno.
It is therapy, but not technically.
It's therapeutic,
right.
But you're not. And so we have folks, sometimes there's so many different things. So there's some folks who, I've had this happen with young people, I've had this happen with adults, where they finish their session and the person who brought them in, a parent, a caregiver, a friend, they're like, hey, how was your session? Or I say, hey, how was your session? And they look at the person who brought them in and they're like, okay, now I can talk to somebody. Because that person was trying to get them to go to therapy and they weren't quite ready. And that stuff gets in the way. So sometimes we are that in between that helps someone be ready for therapy, because it's so hard. Sometimes you're taught, if you're going through trauma, or you've been through trauma, or you've just come out of a toxic situation, think about that toxicity. We've all had, toxic friends or toxic kinds of things happen in life. And so you're talking about that in your head all the time. You may not want to go and talk to someone about it. You may not be ready. You're still kind of processing it, and you're sick of hearing it.
Yeah, it puts you back in a bad mood.
Absolutely. So you just, and that stuff, those heavy emotions, they're really weighing you down, and they're really affecting your mood, and they're affecting how you relate to other people. So what we figured out is it truly does need that physical release. So once that's done, then folks are better able to participate in therapy and be more open to talking. And many people are ready then to go and to even consider doing therapy.
That makes so much sense.
It really does. It really does. Sometimes the stuff is just so heavy and you're just bogged down in it.
Right.
And it's like you're moving in mud, right? So to be able to get that out.
You don't know where to start a lot of times too. So if you've already done all the physical and did all that, it kind of you're right, it gets it all out to where it's like, okay.
Right. And
that's at least a starting point.
And that's why we call it a trauma transformation center. So what people say when they are done is that they feel lighter. So for example, I had a woman come in, beautiful woman, and tiny little thing. She was a self-described little Italian gypsy lady, she said. Adorable. And she had just lost a son in a motorcycle accident, and her other son brought her in, and grandkids. And so they're getting her geared up, and we do full PPE, head to toe. They're getting her geared up, and she's, protesting a little. She's not sure what she's there for, and she's in deep grief. And when I talked to the other son, she's like, Mom's in the garage. We can't get her to come out of the garage. She's really having a hard time. And then he told me, of course, what was going on. She comes in, we get her geared up, son gets geared up too, and so he goes in to start raging to demonstrate kind of how you do this, right? I have a wide array of weapons, and sometimes I don't even know what they are. So I had a kickstand, not even a motorcycle kickstand. It is a bicycle kickstand, but she knew what it was. I walked by the weapons rack, picked it up, and she immediately zeroed in on it. She snatched it out of my hand. She kicks her son out of the room. She goes in there. Her phrase was, "That damn bike." And so she raged, going, "That damn bike, that damn bike." That's all she said. Tears, kind of rolling. She comes out of the room trembling, which happens pretty regularly after an intense rage. You come out and you're a little shaky, which is why we do that Zen compliment to calm you and ground you. But she comes over to me and she said, she puts her arm around me and she said, "I don't know how you got me to do that." She said, "I didn't think I was going to do that, and I didn't really understand it." She said, and I can't say I feel better, but I will say I feel lighter, and thank you. Can I hug you?
I love that.
Right.
And that's a great, fair statement. It's not that I feel better. I feel lighter.
I feel lighter. And that's what I get all the time. People feel physically the removal, the releasing of that stuff that's just really bogged them down. And it's a physical feeling. Like there was one gentleman who came in and he was grieving, and he did it in this, he explained it in this very visual way. We had a little bit of a language barrier. He speaks Spanish and I speak a little bit of Spanish, so I had a staff person there who was translating. And so after his session, he had painted, and he takes his painting outside, and I said, how do you feel afterwards? And so he said and demonstrated, he said when he came in, he felt really closed. And so he did this whole, putting his head down and, closed off. And he said, but now I feel lighter, like I can fly. And it was beautiful. And it was that same sentiment, that stuff was able to come out, and I feel lighter. So that's what I'm after. I'm after folks being able to get that stuff out of the way so that they can get back to the truth of them, the truth of themselves. So our truth lives in our solar plexus chakra. So it's that whole knowingness, that inner knowingness, that we call it gut feeling or intuition.
Okay.
That part, exactly. And when we go through toxic things, we get divested of that. We get sort of divorced from it and disconnected from it because we're in the middle of toxicity. We're in the middle of trauma. And think about it. Anytime, if you've ever talked to someone on the other side of a really bad relationship, then what they're doing first is maybe they're feeling a little bit of I'm out of that, but mostly before they can get to the this feels so much better, they're in the what the heck? Why did I stay so long? Why did I miss those red flags? Why did I allow this? Why did I allow that? That is re-traumatizing themselves, number one, but they're second guessing themselves, and they're disconnecting from their ability to trust themselves because they feel like that they betrayed themselves, right? They stayed in something that was harmful, right? So getting this stuff out of the way, these heavy emotions that are associated with the trauma, with the heavy experiences that we go through, with the toxicity that we may have been living through, when we get that stuff out of the way, it allows us to get back to that truth of ourselves so that we can move ourselves forward, so that we can have better boundaries, so that we can envision those boundaries, so that we can know, okay, this is my truth. This is what is real for me. This is what feels good for me. And this doesn't, right? I can discern that. So we have people report better, definitely clearer boundaries, definitely easier decision making. The discernment just comes easier once we get that stuff out. So it just opens up doors for further growth and empowerment.
So what made you think of doing this?
So I went to Hawaii and I was on sabbatical, and I was really wanting to already doing healing work in the community as an Akashic practitioner and energetic healer. And as a women's gender and sexuality studies professor, my specialty and my area of expertise was sexual and other violent trauma. And so I connected with indigenous healers in Hawaii. And so I really was looking for a way and a means to help folks dealing with really deep trauma that is sometimes going back to childhood, childhood molestation. And I've worked with women and men in all sorts of settings. And this is a culmination of 30 years of life's work. So working with folks who have been homeless, working with people coming out of prison, working with people dealing with and recovering from drug addiction. And when we look at women in all of those kinds of situations, like looking at women in prison, for instance, you won't find, it's something like 80 to 90% of the women that are in prison, they have a history of sexual assault. And they have a history of sexual assault before 12. And then they have a history of a second sexual assault between 12 and 16. And, generally, depending upon their age, a third. So there is a strong history of sexual trauma with women in prison, with women with addiction. We look at those same kinds of things. And so working in those fields and dealing with women and men dealing with those kinds of issues, it's like, how do we how do we get beyond that? How do we help people move beyond the trauma of that? Because it's so heavy and it's so deep. And looking at the spiritual work of it, that we came to as spiritual beings to experience certain things, and some of that is some of the trauma that we're experiencing. We came to have these life experiences so that we could actually heal, and so that in our healing we could help other people heal. Well, how do we get from the experience of the trauma to seeing where we position ourselves in the world and identifying what kind of healing work we might want to do, and even recognizing that if you do nothing more than heal yourself, you've done enough, and you've done enough for the planet, because your personal healing is going to reverberate outward from you and have an impact in the world. Some people, that's it, that's absolutely enough. And then there are folks that they want to give back and they want to work with other people. I mean, think about drug and alcohol treatment. Have you ever met someone who was a drug and alcohol counselor who wasn't in recovery, or someone who maybe had participated in Al-Anon because they're from a family where addiction was prevalent, right? So we go into those fields. I mean, think about even physicians, doctors. My dad's in the hospital right now, and when we talk with a lot of folks that go into particular areas of medicine, it's because they had someone in their family who had this particular affliction, or who died of this, disease, and they wanted to, and nothing could be done, or they weren't satisfied with the care, and they wanted to, or they had an experience where there were really great doctors that were, the heroes in the story, and so that inspired them to go into it. So we tend to all gravitate toward these jobs and these vocations and life work, if you will, that is a way of giving back and helping others to deal with and grow through the things that we personally have grown through and learned from.
How do you see, I want to start a place just like this where they can do this and that? Where did you come up with that?
It was a dream. It was a vision that came to me while I was in Hawaii meditating and doing spiritual work, and it was okay. This is heavy, and it's in the body, and it needs a somatic release. It needs an actual physical release. And so I started looking at, this kind of motion, and I was doing work there, just personal work, and so it's like this motion, this hitting and this throwing motion, and looking at rage rooms. There were rage rooms in existence. They're few and far between at that time. This was in 2017, but there were a couple of them. But like I said, they're entertainment, and I wanted to go deeper. And so the spiritual work is something that I was just really deeply rooted in. And so, there has to be a component of this. And then, of course, like I said, my advanced degrees are in psychology. And so it's like I started looking at what do we know about anger, and what do we know about how its effect in the body, and what do we know about how it affects other people. And it's things like AAA does a road rage survey every year, and isn't that interesting? Right? It's like we're all driving around in these vehicles that are essentially bombs if we've got a full tank of gas, right? And road rage is so common that AAA is doing a study about it every single. You can look at their studies over the past several years and compare how it's increasing. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to ride. I don't want to be driving on the road and on the freeway with all these people with all this rage, right? And these ticking time bombs, if you will. And just looking at ways that people suppress it, because society, as we said, doesn't really give you permission, doesn't give you a way, a place, or permission to do this kind of releasing. Instead, it's push it down, push it down. And if you're not pushing it down, there's that shame factor, right? So I wanted to create a place that really defied all of that actually allowed folks to do that sacred releasing, and I consider it sacred. It's the rage that people have and feel is righteous, and the releasing of that is absolutely sacred, and it is a part of getting back to the truth of ourselves and being able to take the power back. Because when we go through these traumatic kinds of experiences, we often feel disempowered, and we don't know how to get back to the truth of us. We don't know how to leave that trauma over there because it just keeps coming up. So because it's buried in our body, it's imprinted in our body.
So you said we can get sessions. So how does this work? If we want to say we're like, oh, we want to try it out, how do we go about all this?
So www.theartofanger.com. And there's a
survey.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, there is a survey.
Okay.
If you click on book now from the landing page, it's going to take you to a survey, and it's going to ask you, hey, how long have you been angry? And is this a recent situation or a past situation, and that kind of thing. You could also click on the home page button instead, and just kind of peruse the site and take a look at all the different sessions that are offered, the types of sessions that we offer, and pick one. And if you click book now from there, it's going to take you actually to a booking page where you're actually going to choose your session, choose your day, choose, how large of a package you want.
And you do gift certificates as well.
We absolutely
Because that sounds like, I think this is like really awesome.
We absolutely do.
That's
We do
cool.
gift certificates. We do memberships. And so sometimes folks are working on something and it's sort of a kind of a bigger thing. So maybe they're just coming out of a really rough breakup, or they are grieving multiple people having passed in a short period of time. And so they might.
Well, you say all this stuff, I'm thinking of so many. I mean, I would love to do this myself, and then I'm thinking of so many people that would benefit from this as well. So yeah.
And I love it that you said both. And when I'm out and about talking about this, I'm in describing what I do, people are always, oh, my nephew, my cousin, my neighbor, my son. And I just need to walk around with a mirror and say, no, hun, it's you. And it's me, because it's all of us.
Trust me, everybody watching knows I love having permission to be angry now.
It's
now I
all
get
of
to tell
us.
everyone I have a permission now.
Right. and permission to release it, right? We're so conditioned to hide it, to suppress it, to manage it. So anger management. And yet, where does it go? Because it's a heavy and explosive emotion. So we can suppress it, we can hide it, we can push it over here for a while. And we can give you some tools to manage it, which is to keep it under wraps so that it doesn't explode, right? But what happens if we give you a safe place to allow that explosion so that you don't have to worry about it coming at an inopportune time?
Just like how we need an opportunity to vent. Like sometimes they're just like, I just want an opportunity to vent, let me vent. And so this is kind of the same way physically.
Absolutely. And all of our rooms are yell, scream, cry rooms. And I tell folks, like, yell, scream, cuss, cry, whatever that comes out of your mouth comes out.
I love this.
And like, none of us are ever going to be old enough to cuss at grandma's house, but we won't tell grandma. Okay, this is our little secret. And, like I said, we get kids. So I say that when parents are booking, I tell the parents that beforehand, like, hey, I'm going to tell your kid that they can yell and scream and they can cuss. And so when I say that to the kid when they're there with the parent, invariably, they look at the parent like, really?
Oh, I bet they all light up.
And the parents are like, yes, it's okay. It's okay here.
So how backed up are you? How much in advance do you have to book? How does that all work?
It really depends on how large of a group you're doing. So we do groups, and we do corporate groups, team building, that kind of thing. And birthday parties and such. So, but we can generally, depending. Yes, we have lots of adults that call and go, hey, I'm planning my own birthday party.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, tell all your friends, and then they just call and go, hey, I'm booking for Sparkle's birthday party.
That's a new experience. I like it.
Right.
Was there alcohol? Can you drink alcohol too?
Absolutely not. So, absolutely not. I want you to rage sober because we have weapons there, and I want you to be.
I had to ask.
I know. I want folks, and that's actually the reason I don't do walk-ins. So I want people to, I don't want folks to go, I don't want you to rage on a full stomach, and I don't want you to rage inebriated.
Okay.
So because you're going to release what no longer serves you, and that's not the kind of cleanup I want my staff doing. So. We want to pick up the broken stuff, but not the other stuff that might come out. So you wouldn't go to the gym and work out after having a big greasy burger or or inebriated, right?
You're right.
So it's because it's a really intense workout. And I'm going to tell you afterwards to go drink a lot of water because it'll help flush out stuff. But go have the alcohol afterwards if that's what you want to do.
And that's actually better anyway. That's actually you're like, ooh, okay, let's celebrate. Yeah. I like that idea, girl. I got you.
Yeah, totally. So we can generally get you in within possibly even the same day or within a day or so of when you call. If it's a group, then if you know the date and time that all of your group can. Hey, it's your birthday. You know when your birthday is, or that you want to do it on the Friday or Saturday or Sunday around your birthday. Then let's book that for groups as far in advance as you already know the date, because you're going to block off all of my rooms and it's going to be your group.
Right.
So we're going to rotate you through. We'll get a couple of you into some solos. We'll get a couple of you in a duo with each other, and then we'll switch you so that everybody gets a chance to do a solo rage all on their own with nobody looking over their shoulder.
I like that. Okay.
Nobody listening
That's
to
what I
how
was
hard
thinking
they
too.
yell.
When you said group, so now I get it. Okay.
Yeah, and then you get to do the fun thing with another person in the group where you're in a duo and you can toss to each other and hit things in the air, and that's super fun, and kind of egg each other on and that kind of thing. It is very, very fun, and at the same time also healing. But we also need to know kind of, hey, should I do a solo or should I do a duo? And sometimes, that's the question. Like, sometimes folks know, hey, I've been going through some stuff where I know these kinds of things are going to come up. And so maybe you want to come in and do a solo session and then plan the party.
That makes sense.
So that you get your stuff out. And I often give that advice to parents that if they are bringing a kid in because that kid is going through some stuff, and that's something that's going on in the family, come and do your session first, so that you get your stuff kind of out of the way, so that when your kid does their session, you're fully present, and you're able to support them and be there for them and hold space for them without losing it. Because when you're holding that space for the kid and they're going, as a parent, you're feeling what your kid's feeling. So get your stuff out of the way so that you can be fully present while they're raging. Same thing, if you bring someone in that a friend's going through stuff, but this might also trigger you, do your session, or we'll put you both in some solo sessions at the same time, give you a Bluetooth with your music on it, and we can blast that, play whatever you want, as loud as you want. And, some people really want to listen to music and kind of have that, experience of that music in the background. Other people are like, no, I want to hear the crashing sound,
I love that. So we all have to follow The Art of Anger on everything, right? I imagine.
It's The Art of Anger on Facebook. Instagram is The Art of Anger 1111.
Okay.
And our phone number is 559-420-7706.
Awesome. That's so easy. So everybody got to follow this and see what's up. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. And now you guys are going to hear one of the best saxophonists in town, music by Matt Tuttle.
Juilliard. Key change.
Don't forget to follow Matt Art Tuttle on Facebook.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh I must confess dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time